grew up in Middlesex, New Jersey. You did play for your high school football team.
Not very well.
But you weren't even a starter.
Yeah, I wasn't.
That's not someone you'd peg as being a successful football coach. Am I right?
I wanted to be a sports announcer. I knew early enough that I was not a great athlete. I knew I was hardworking. I knew I was intelligent, but I wasn't a very good athlete. But I loved sports. I was a sports junkie. I played, year-round, everything. You name it, I played. I just wasn't very good. But I wanted to be Marv Albert. I wanted to be Marty Glickman. I wanted to do play-by-play for the Giants. Back then it was just radio. You didn't have TV. And you'd have all those things, and you'd watch everything, and that's what I wanted to go to school for. But I ended up after college going in a route of teaching and coaching, and really it's kind of grown from there, because football coaching has become a very cerebral sport, a cerebral job, and really you're an educator. That's the number one thing you are.
One thing about you that people might not know, talk about your high school coaching experiences. Actually, you were a fencing coach for 1 year, am I right? Were you a good fencing coach? I can imagine you being a very good fencing coach.
You want to know why I was good? Because I hired a guy by the name of Bob Largman, who was a national champ at North Carolina, who went to Morristown High School, and I used to just hold the fort till he got to practice. And when he got to practice, he would teach everything. Basically, they had no one there, and the AD, who was the football coach, made me take any job that he couldn't get somebody to do. I was also a lacrosse coach, and I knew nothing about lacrosse either. But Bob ended up coaching the Nationals. I mean, this was a top level guy. So I knew enough to condition him until Bob got there, and then stay out of the way.
You knew what you didn't know, which I guess in fencing was a lot.
Correct.
I just worry about the idea of you holding swords and having access to swords.
Hold it, épée, foil, and saber. Okay, okay. I do know the three different categories.
Okay. Some other Charlie Weis greatest hits. Is it true? We all know you went to Notre Dame as a student, not as an athlete, and a sports junkie. Is it true that you once called the university president to complain about the football team?
Yep, that was true. Dan Devine was the coach at the time, Father Hesburgh. I called his number. Oh, it was embarrassing. But I called his number to complain, and it was back before caller ID now. And he goes, "Who is this?" And I'm babbling, he goes, "I want you to come to my office right now." So I could have done one of two things, ducked him, or go to his office. And I went to his office, and I proceeded to get scolded by Father Hesburgh, and walked out with my head between my you-know-what. I mean, it was one of the more humbling experiences that I've been through.
So much for telling the truth.
That's right.
That might be an instance where...
Yeah, I went a little overboard, and I got called on it, trust me.
You spent a year as a head coach at Franklin Township High School, and I've seen you where you describe that as the most fulfilling year of your career.
Well,
Why?
high school teaching was my most fulfilling job I ever had. Even I taught a bunch of years at Morristown. I was at the school Booton before that. As a high school educator, forget about coach for a second. You are so much. I mean, you're an educator, you're a guidance counselor, you're a civic leader, you're a community leader, okay? You're a second father, sometimes you're a first father, okay? And I think that job was probably, the job of being an educator was probably the most fulfilling one of anything I've ever had.
This is sort of a simplistic piece of evaluation, but I know that it's cropped up with you. But that year, we had great experiences in the National Football League, but that was your only head coaching experience, right? That 1 year in high school before you got to Notre Dame. Is it too simplistic to say that not having as much, or maybe if you'd had more experience as a head coach, especially at the collegiate level, that you would have been more prepared for a job as big as Notre Dame, that maybe it wouldn't have ended the way that it did?
I would like to think that everyone in any profession that was a head coach that then gets to be a head coach again, or was in one job and then gets to do it again with somewhere else, will have looked back to about the first time and say, why did I do that? It does make a difference how, I look at Coach Belichick, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame. how did they like him in Cleveland? Okay, and the guy's going to the Hall of Fame. One of the greatest coaches, arguably, possibly the greatest coach, but are in that discussion. Okay, but you learn from your mistakes. I mean, it isn't like I was error-free, and there were a number of things that if I had to do over again, I'd do them differently. But they're in the past, and you learn from those mistakes, and you just move on.